Do you ever feel like you're doing all the inner work, but something still aches? Like you've read the books, journaled your childhood, identified your attachment style, even whispered affirmations into the void of your therapist's office, and yet, peace. Still out of reach. We became what our parents, teachers, or society wanted, not because we were weak, but because we were surviving. And let's be honest. Some of us became so good at surviving that now we can deliver a PowerPoint presentation while dissociating completely from our bodies. Good job, corporate trauma response. Gold star. Carl Jung would say that won't you keep intellectualizing? That's the problem. Because until it becomes experience, not insight, you're just decorating the walls of your own prison. And here's the hard truth: you will never find peace until you confront this specific childhood wound. One so taboo, so normalized, you likely don't even see it. Today, I'm not just going to show it to you. I'm going to walk with you through it. Step by step. With a map of the middle. With the tools to actually integrate. Not just understand. And if that sounds heavy, good. The soul was never meant to stay surface level. Let's begin. Part 1, the invisible wound. Let me ask you something. When you were a kid, did you ever feel like you had to shrink to be loved? Like love came with a cost to your authenticity. You see, the core wound isn't abuse, neglect, or abandonment, though those are real. The deepest wound Jung pointed to is this: the loss of the self in exchange for the mother's love. The child doesn't say, "My mother is incapable of seeing me." They say, "There must be something wrong with me." This is how the false self is born. The perfectionist. The peacemaker. The achiever. The caretaker. The gooder one. You became who they needed you to be and buried who you actually are. You were praised for compliance, not for truth. Think about this. How often do you suppress your emotions to keep peace? Pretend you're okay to avoid burdening others? Or play a role in relationships just to feel loved? Yeah. You're not alone. Most of us deserve Oscars for how well we've performed. Totally fine, nothing's wrong. Jung called this mask the persona, and let's face it, some of us have been wearing ours so long we've started accessorizing it. Real-world example: you got straight A's not because you were curious, but because your mother looked happier when you did. Or maybe you were the funny one. The strong one. The one who handled it. You became useful. Instead of being loved for existing. And now, as an adult, you're exhausted. You don't know who you are. Just what others expect. Part 2, why insight isn't enough. You might be thinking, okay, I know this already. Exactly. That's the problem. Insight without integration is spiritual entertainment. You don't need another realization. You need a ritual. Here's the kicker: most healing content leaves you seen, but stranded. You walk away saying, "That explains so much." But then what? You still feel anxious when your partner pulls away. You still shut down when you're asked what you want. You still overfunction at work and underfunction at rest. This childhood wound often shows up in disguise. Here are some signs you may still carry it. You feel like you're never enough, no matter how much you achieve. You constantly seek approval. You attract emotionally unavailable people. Don't worry, we've all had a PhD in that. You avoid conflict at all costs. You fear being truly seen, even by those closest to you. And if you relate to all of these, don't panic. It just means you're probably a human. With Wi-Fi and unresolved attachment issues. Let's be brutally honest. You've made peace with your trauma. But have you reclaimed yourself? Because your trauma didn't just hurt you. It replaced you. You're not healing to be understood. You're healing to be reborn. Part 3, the map of the middle. So how do you confront this wound? Step 1, awareness. Ask, whose life am I living? Is this drain yours? Or a recycled family expectation passed down like emotional hammerdowns? Step 2, inner dialogue. Write a letter to your younger self, the version that was told to shrink, hide, or stay quiet. Bonus points if your inner child writes back and says, "Took you long enough." Step 3. Shadow work. Notice what triggers you most in others. Hate when someone's loud. Maybe you weren't allowed to be. Can't stand laziness. Maybe you were overworked at 5. Or maybe they are just annoying, but you get the idea. So what does healing actually look like? Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Here's your map. Step 1. Catch the false self in real time. Example, you are at dinner. Everyone wants sushi. You want something else. You say, whatever you all want. Bed. False self. She's back. Step 2. Interrupt the performance. You take a deep breath. You say, actually, I think I want something different. You'll feel guilty. Awkward. Exposed. Good. That's your old identity dying. Step 3. Reparent the exile. Find that inner child who learned she had to disappear. And say to her, you don't have to vanish to be loved. I see you. I'm staying. Do that 1,000 times. That's the work. It's not sexy. It's not viral. But it's freedom. Part 4. Spiritual hunger and distrust. Let's talk about the soul. You're not just psychologically wounded. You're spiritually starving. But here's the paradox: the more burned you've been by religion or control, the more allergic you become to anything sacred. And now, you're wandering through life like a metaphysical orphan. You crave depth, but you distrust it. You crave meaning, but mock it. Carl Jung saw this. He said, neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. So what if your anxiety is spiritual grief? You don't trust the sacred because it once demanded your silence. But the real sacred, it wants your voice. Spirituality, in its true form, isn't about obedience. It's about integration. Not climbing out of your darkness, but descending into it. That's where the soul waits. You were never broken. You were adapting. And honestly, you did a brilliant job. Some of us survived chaos with nothing but caffeine, anxiety, and hyper-independence. But peace doesn't come from pretending it never happened. Peace comes from remembering who you were before the pretending began. Part 5. The Forbidden Truth. Ready for something uncomfortable? Here's the forbidden truth. Most of your healing is just upgraded self-abandonment. The yoga, the breathwork, the grain juice, the reading, even this video. All noble. But if you're doing them to fix yourself, not to find yourself, it's just another false self in a spiritual costume. Jung's path wasn't about perfection. It was about wholeness. And wholeness includes the parts you were told were too much. Your anger, your neediness, your hunger, your grief. Integration means welcoming them back home. Even if your mother couldn't. Even if the world still won't. Because healing isn't about getting love. It's about giving it first to the parts of yourself that were told they didn't deserve it. This is something most self-help books won't tell you. Not because they don't know, but because if they told you this, they'd sell fewer journals and affirmation decks. You don't heal by fixing. You heal by remembering. Remembering the pain you weren't allowed to feel. The anger you weren't allowed to express. The truth you had to bury to be lovable. Jung believed that what you reject doesn't disappear, it waits. It waits in your relationships, your burnout cycles, your panic at 2 a.m. It waits in your perfectionism and your fear of stillness. And let's be honest, stillness is terrifying when you've built your identity on productivity. Some of us would rather reorganize our trauma than feel it. But the truth is, no amount of optimizing your morning routine will compensate for a childhood where no one noticed your sadness. Part 6. The Loop of Self-Improvement. Ever feel like you've been working on yourself for years, but somehow still feel like a broken IKEA shelf held together by podcasts and matcha? Yeah. That's the loop. The self-improvement loop. Step 1. Feel broken. Step 2. Consume content. Step 3. Get inspired. Step 4. Crash back into old patterns. Step 5. Blame yourself. Step 6. Repeat. You know what's really wild? We think we are healing, but we are just getting better at hiding our wounds in prettier language. Let's be honest, self-help is the new self-harm. It starts with good intentions. A book here. A podcast there. Maybe a wellness retreat. But suddenly, you're in a loop. You're journaling about the part of you that journals too much. You're meditating to quiet the voice that says you're not meditating enough. You're buying healing tools from the same place you buy toothpaste. The wound? It's moneized. The cure? Packaged. But peace isn't found in hacks or habits. It's in the honesty. What if you stopped fixing and just started feeling? What if the most spiritual thing you could do today was nothing? To lay on the floor and sob like the child you once were. Because maybe that's the prayer that counts. Jung warned us. You can't become whole by polishing the ego. You have to descend into the underworld of the psyche. And the underworld, my friend, doesn't have Wi-Fi or guided meditations. It is silence, grief, memory, and if you're lucky, it is your inner child waiting with crossed arms like, took you long enough. I've been here since 1997. Part 7, Real-World Reflections. So what does all this mean for real life? It means peace might not look like bliss. It might look like this. Saying no and not justifying it. Crying in your car and letting it be sacred. Telling your mother you're in therapy. Feeling anger without fearing you're turning into your father. Letting go of the need to be impressive. Real healing is boring. It's unsexy. It's quiet. And it's slow. You want peace? Look at your daily life. Not the breakthroughs. The small betrayals. When you say yes and mean no. When you smile when you want to scream. When you give what you don't have. That's the battlefield. Integration doesn't happen on the retreat mat. It happens at 5:30 p.m. when your mom calls and you debate picking up. It happens when your friend asks how you are and you almost say fine. It happens when you choose to disappoint others rather than betray yourself just once. That's the work. You won't get a gold star for choosing rest over revenge. You won't get applause for walking away from people who benefit from your silence. But you will feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Yourself. Part 8, Final Descent. Let's take it deeper. You're not afraid of being seen. You're afraid of seeing yourself without the mask. Try this, sit alone, no phone, no music, no affirmations. Just you. What shows up? Is it stillness or shame? That discomfort, that ache, is the part of you that's been begging to be known. Jung would call it the shadow. The parts we banished. But it's not evil, it's exiled. You're not confronting darkness. You're confronting your own disowned light. Part 9, Death of the Identity. Healing isn't adding new layers, it's peeling them off. The you who is wise, patient, gentle, grounded might just be another costume. Can you let that version die too? Because true wholeness doesn't have a brand. It doesn't sparkle for social media. It grieves. It rages. It doubts. And then it breathes. Your soul wants a reunion. Not a rebrand. Part 10, The Rewilding. What if healing isn't about becoming a monk, but becoming wild again? What if your truest self isn't more tame, but more feral, raw, chaotic, real? Let go of the calm ideal. There is peace in the storm when the storm is you. Let your laughter be loud. Let your tears be ugly. Let your truth interrupt the dinner table. That's integration. That's you, unedited. Part 11, When Healing Becomes Hiding. Let's talk about your healing era. You know the one where you proudly announce boundaries, sage your bedroom, and keep a trauma journal that's thicker than your tax documents. But here's the catch, healing can become hiding. You're not avoiding people, you're avoiding being seen. You say, I'm protecting my peace, but what you really mean is, I don't know how to be vulnerable without crumbling. You ghost situations that ask you to be real. You leave before anyone gets a chance to abandon you. You've made isolation look like empowerment. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So maybe it's not fate. Maybe it's just fear wearing a crystal necklace. Part 12, the betrayal nobody talks about. Let's name the betrayal. Not the one your parents did to you. Not the one your partner repeated. The betrayal you've done to yourself. Every time you laughed at a joke that hurt you. Every time you said, I'm fine, instead of, I'm bleeding. Every time you chose belonging over honesty. It adds up. Jung didn't say, love yourself. He said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. You cannot integrate what you keep betraying. So ask yourself, what part of you have you been ghosting? And are you ready to write her back? Part 13, the myth of being over it. You ever catch yourself saying, I thought I was over this? As if healing were a ladder. As if grief didn't have seasons. Here's the dark humor, you'll be over it right around the time your body is in the dirt. Until then, you're just peeling onions. Real talk, some wounds don't close. They become portals. To compassion. To creativity. To depth. Jung's alchemy wasn't about making pain disappear. It was about turning it into gold. So stop asking, why am I still feeling this? Start asking, what is this feeling here to make of me? You're not broken. You're becoming. Part 14, welcome to the void. Let's go there. The part after the healing. The what now zone. The existential waiting room. You're not triggered, but you're not peaceful. You're not drowning, but you're not flying. Welcome to the void. It's the place where your old self has died but the new self hasn't fully arrived. Most people run. Back to chaos. Back to patterns. Back to anything that feels familiar. But if you can stay, if you can sit in the boredom, the silence, the space between breaths, you will meet your soul there. Jung would call this the nigredo phase, blackness before transformation. Most quit here. Don't. Part 15, the shame you didn't know you had. Let's unearth the sneakiest emotion, shame. Not the dramatic kind. The subtle variety. The shame of wanting too much. The shame of being too sensitive. The shame of needing others after convincing yourself you didn't. You're not needy. You're human. You're not dramatic. You're expressive. You're not weak. You're awake. Jung saw shame as the soul's cry for reintegration. So instead of burying it, listen. Because under every I'm too much is a child who was told to be less. And you don't overcome shame by hiding. You overcome it by standing in it until it no longer defines you. Part 16, your ego is not the enemy. Quick refrain. Your ego isn't the villain. It's the armor. The version of you that learned how to protect your heart with logic, sarcasm, silence. And yeah, dark humor. You needed her. She kept you alive. But you don't need to go to war with your ego. You need to thank her, then tell her to take a nap. Because real healing doesn't exile the ego. It humbles it. It says, you helped me survive. Now I want to live. Integration means you don't have to pick sides. You can be whole. With your wit, your wounds, and your wildness. Part 17, the soul's quiet demand. Here's where we land. Your soul isn't screaming. It's whispering. In the sigh you let out when no one's watching. In the dreams you keep dismissing. In the tears that show up at the dumbest times. She's not demanding productivity. She's asking for presence. Not more content. More contact. Carl Jung didn't give us steps. He gave us symbols. Shadows. Silence. And in that silence, you'll find the most uncomfortable thing. Yourself. Not the curated version. Not the healed version. The real one. And she's been waiting. Not for your perfection. But your permission. Part 18, Encore. If you made it this far, congratulations, you just sat through 21 minutes of Jungian shadow work instead of watching a video of a raccoon stealing pizza. That's progress. If this message spoke to you, maybe it's because you're finally ready. Not to fix yourself, but to re-meet yourself. The child who felt deeply. The teen who rebelled with reason. The adult who's slowly putting the pieces back together. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And maybe that's what you've been doing. Calling it fate. Calling it bad luck. Calling it just how I am. But now you know. And knowing carries a responsibility. Not to be perfect. Not to be healed. But to be honest. To say, yes, this hurt me. Yes, this shaped me. And it. No, I don't have to keep repeating it. The wound isn't your fault. But the healing, that's yours. And if no one ever told you this, you're not too late. You're not too broken. You're not too much. You're right on time.